Welcome back to the Horseman's Corner with this man Hargis. What are some of the products that you have for sale that might be helpful to people to learn a little more about horses and horsemanship, Van?
But when they come to an event, whether it be at a clinic or an expo, they can usually get our stuff, one of which is a Ranch Horse Versatility DVD. It's called Train the Versatile Ranch Horse, and it's kind of a three-part deal. It works a little bit on how to train a ranch horse, how to utilize those ranch horse skills in a practical setting on a ranch, and at the same time how to use those skills to be more competitive in a ranch horse competition type environment. Another DVD we're offering is a DVD called Bit by Bit, and it's where we kind of take away some of the mystery, I guess you could say, about various bits. It's probably one of the biggest questions that I get is, what bit do you recommend? And I think the reason people ask that question is that there's so darn many bits out there today, and people don't understand why there are so many and how to use them and what bit works best in which situation. And on that DVD, I do my best just to try to simplify that and try to take away some of the most difficult questions. And then, of course, we have a menagerie of other types of things, the halters and lead ropes that I normally use, my bits and my head stalls and saddles that we've designed. And I've just been very, very fortunate in this industry to have some of the top saddle manufacturers come to me over the years and ask for some of my designs. And again, they're very simple. There's nothing spectacular about my designs. They're just real simple, real basic, but they're very, very functional for the working horseman.
Okay, let's talk about what people ought to be looking for when they're, besides looking for good hands is one thing they ought to be looking for when they're talking about bits, but the bit itself, what should they be looking for?
Well, to me, I'm looking for something that's going to be extremely simple. I start all of my colts off. The first rides are usually with a halter and a lead rope, and then I'll graduate to kind of what I call a glorified loping hackamore, which is just a real simple. It's one step above a halter. But the first bit I put in the horse's mouth is just a very simple, smooth mouth snaffle. It's an offset D-ring snaffle, and therein lies another question. A lot of people say, well, why an offset D-ring as opposed to an O-ring snaffle? Well, I've got nothing against an O-ring snaffle. It's just almost every bit we ride a horse with outside of a snaffle, a true snaffle, is going to have some sort of straight edge on it on the corners of the horse's mouth. So if that's the case, I'm going to go with the mildest bit I possibly can, which is a broken mouthpiece snaffle and smooth snaffle that's got a straight edge on the side, and there's probably not a better one out there that's represented than a offset D-ring. It prepares my horse for the next bit, the transition bit that I would go to next. So what I tell folks to look for is just simplicity. Look for something very simple, things that we know already works. And some of those things are, number one, smooth. I want smooth mouth because I don't want to inflict any more discomfort to a horse, and this is what I absolutely have to. So I like a smooth mouth for that purpose. It has been proven over years of various studies that a porous type metal, such as sweet iron, seems to be very, very comfortable to a horse. It promotes salivation, and it's porous enough that that salivation isn't wasted, I guess you could say, for lack of a better term. But so I also often look for a smooth mouth snaffle that's with sweet iron metals. Just for my laziness aspect of it, I like for the cheek pieces to be stainless steel. And the reason I do is that they're quick and easy to clean, maintains a certain kind of eye appeal. And there's other bits out there that are pretty, by God, but the stainless steel is just the easiest and the quickest to keep clean. So I like something like that. Again, just trying to keep my world simple as I possibly can for both me and my horse. But those are some of the things I look for in some of the milder bits, and certainly the bits I'm going to be starting a horse off with at first.
When it comes to the saddles, sure, a saddle has to fit a horse, but that saddle is really important. That's a good foundation, and it's got to be comfortable for the horse, I would think. So, talk about saddles a little bit, will you, and what you're looking for there?
Yes, sir. Well, what I'm looking for in a saddle, of course, you hit the nail right on the head, and I want to find a top-quality saddle made by a very reputable and very top-quality saddle manufacturer. And the reason why is that they're generally going to work a little bit harder with the saddle tree manufacturers to make sure that the trees that go into the saddles are well-conformed and well-balanced, meaning that they lay flat, that they don't lay on the horse's back crooked. In other words, we want all 4 points of that saddle to be even. That's, in other words, it's just like everything else. So we've got to start with a great foundation. That saddle tree is the absolute most important thing there. After that, we want to make sure we're using top quality materials, the best leather possible. So those are the things I look for. But really, when I'm looking for outside of those things, I'm looking for something that fits my task. I really have to ask myself, what am I going to be doing in my horse the most? If all I do is race barrels and I'm a barrel racer, then by God, it might just pay for me to go find me a barrel racing saddle as opposed to a cutting saddle. So I want to match the saddle to the task of which that suits my needs. For one, I have several saddles in the tack room, probably more than what I'd ever use and what I ever need. But I've got a saddle just about for every occasion. I've got a saddle for a numerous number of horses, because the reality is, too, we're not going to find one saddle that's going to fit every horse. Not that I would tell everybody to go buy 1,000 saddles, but at the same time, that's where a good saddle manufacturer comes in. You're going to find a saddle tree that's going to fit a fairly diverse number of horses' backs. And then we follow that up, of course, with a good saddle pad that'll make up for any sort of ill fit that may be taking place with that saddle not fitting exactly correct. But the things I'm looking for, number one, a good quality saddle manufacturer, good quality materials and workmanship, and then matching the saddle to the task.
You talked about the saddle itself, and of course that saddle pad is extremely important. Talk about those a little bit. What your preference is there, will you?
You betcha. Again, Mr. Hell, when I'm looking for a saddle pad, I'm looking for something that's going to be diverse, meaning something I can use day in and day out. It's going to have. I prefer saddle pads to be made of natural fibers as opposed to synthetic fibers. And when I say natural fibers, I will probably say this, that probably 80% or more of the saddle pads that are in my tack room are made of wool of some sort. I have very few synthetic type materials in my tack room for my saddle pads. And of course I have various thicknesses of saddle pads, again, to match both my task as well as to match my horse. I'll try to match that horse with the best saddle fit I possibly can, but I'll make up for any little bit that I possibly can with a top quality saddle pad made out of those natural fibers. And again, my personal preference is a wool pad. And with a wool pad, the cool thing is you can get a wool pad and get any kind of blanket you want to put over that thing and dress it up. And for these people that are out there in the show world, these women especially, boy, they'll match their saddle pads, their splint boots, and they'll match everything they possibly can to their outfit, which I think looks great and it's good for the industry. But by golly, I'd hate to have to buy so many $200 saddle pads to make that happen. So what they can do is go buy a really good top quality saddle pad and then put one of those cover blankets over the top of it and meet both needs and both requirements. So to me, again, I look for a saddle pad that's going to suit my needs, that's going to fit my horse, fit my saddle, and at the same time made out of natural fibers if at all possible.
Yeah, that wool is tough to beat, isn't it?
I tell you, it really is. I mean, I've seen so many variations of it, to where people take a really good wool pad and they'll put some sort of neoprene or some sort of rubber on the bottom of it. I'm not a big fan of that. But that wool really does a great job of not only just acting as a good pad that conforms to the horse's shape and to the shape of the saddle as well, but so it's great for shock absorption, but it's also great for absorbing that moisture and wicking that moisture away from the horse's back. I just don't think you can beat wool for a good quality saddle pad.
What about the tree itself? Have you gone into any of the flex trees, that type of thing, or do you stick with that old standard, the rawhide covered, really good wood tree?
Well, being in this industry and having earned the reputation I had over the years, I will have people send me saddles and saddle trees of every sort that you can imagine. And I guess I've tried just about everything that's been out there on the market. And what I haven't, people are trying to send me to try still. So I will give everything, a good look, and I'll study it very objectively. But again, I have to emphasize, I'm going to match my saddle and my saddle trees to my task. I've yet to see anything out there on the market today that replaced a really good wooden tree, wrapped in rawhide and then maybe reinforced with fiberglass for a good working ranch saddle or a good working team roping or cap roping saddle. And the reason those saddles need to be beefed up so much is because we do get into some binds out there from time to time on the ranch. And then in the arena, You take a 300-pound calf at the end of that rope, hitting the end of that rope at 15, 20 miles an hour on a horse that suddenly stopped on a rope that has very little stretch in it. That's a tremendous amount of pound on both the horse as well as on that saddle tree. So I'm obviously looking for something that's going to be very, very, durable in that particular situation. I just don't think a flex tree in that case is going to hold up on my horse and probably going to soar him up if I try to use something like that. However, a flex tree might be great in the reining pen. It might be great in a working cow horse pen, and it might be great on a trail ride. It might even be good on a pleasure type saddle. So again, I've got to emphasize that I need to really study what I'm using my equipment for, and then match that task with that equipment.
Well, gosh, I've taken a lot of your time. About time to close it out. But what would you like to add? What would you like to add that I haven't asked you about?
Oh, Mr. Hale, most importantly, we have to look at this. I think in the horse industry today, there's only 3% of the people that have horses today that actually make a living on horseback. That means there's 97% of the people out there that own horses today that are in it for some reason or the other, and it has to do with recreation. So understanding that and knowing that, the thing that I'd really advise people to do is learn as much as you can so that you can be as secure in what you do with your horses. And then most importantly, have fun. If you're not making a living at it, by golly, have fun. Because even the 3% of the folks like myself, I'm in it to enjoy it, I'm in it to have fun, I'm in it to share with others. So most importantly is just enjoy your horses and have fun.
Thanks for joining us for today's edition of the Horseman's Corner. I'm Howard Hale, host of the show, and I'll say goodbye. May God bless. See you next week. Same time, same place.